symphony of love, unbound. Here in the PNW, we go beyond the sound.
Welcome to episode 2 of Beyond the Sound. I am your host, John Opina, Divisional Music and Gospel Arts Director for the Northwest Division, and I am joined today by
Keith Almanza, the Assistant Music and Worship Arts Director for the Northwest Division.
And joining us today, we have a very special guest all the way from Rancho Palos Verdes, California. We have Summar Bussey. She works in the Territorial Youth Department. We'll give her an opportunity to introduce herself. But today is episode 2. So, yeah, thank you for joining us. And let's start, Summar. Let's just give us a little bit about your background, what you do, and where you're from, because you're not from California. So,
yeah, hi, my name is Summar Bussey, and I am the Territorial Christian Education Director for the Youth Department in the Western Territory. I am originally I was born in South Africa. My mom is South African and my dad's Canadian. And when I was about 1 year old, we moved to New York, and I grew up at the College for Officer Training in Suffern, New York, which is actually where I first met John when I was like, I don't even know how old I was, like 12, 14, maybe?
yeah, that was like 14 years ago.
A long time ago, yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. And then I ended up going to Asbury University in Wilmore, Kentucky, and I studied elementary education. Woo-hoo. And after I graduated in 2020, I was sitting at the Student Center in Asbury, and Colonel Kyle Smith came up. He walked into the room and said, "Anybody want to move to California?" And because of COVID, all of finding jobs in education were just not working, and I was kind of like, feels like the right thing to do. So I ended up working in disaster services for a year, doing training for volunteers and for EDS. And then this job opened up about 3 years ago. So we're going on 3 years being in this department almost in March. So yeah, it's been good.
So this question isn't part of the episode. I love Asbury. Asbury's been that's where I met my wife, Catherine. And you said you studied education. Do you foresee going back into the teaching world, into a classroom at all?
Yeah, so actually it's really funny because in my mind, the ideal job would be to be an elementary art teacher. Like just the idea of being able to invest in relationships with kids and teach them art and get all 5 years with the elementary students sounds like a lot of fun. And that's why I went into education, is to invest in the relationships with kids, and just be able to be somebody there that loves them, right? Because there's so many kids that don't experience that. But God has just been changing my heart and my desire in that way of almost pivoting from being almost on the field and having those direct interactions with kids to adjusting to teaching people how to work with kids and how to love kids with God's love. And so while that's not something that I would be opposed to, it's so much easier to be an art teacher than to be an actual education, third grade teacher. Art teacher, you don't have to worry about any tests or anything like that. Like, what's this color?
Right.
But I definitely feel like God has he prepped me in education to learn how people learn things. And I think that that's kind of helped me in my job now as a Christian education director, to just basically be able to teach adults well on how to teach children. So
that's awesome. I'm sure the TYS will be glad to hear you're not looking to leave the youth department to go to school education. So that's good. All right.
If teachers got paid better, maybe.
I mean, some don't get paid that poorly.
Yeah.
All right. So, Summar, I don't know if you happen to tune into this is, by the way, the number 18 ranked podcast in the Netherlands. But I don't know if you tuned into our first episode, but we kicked it off because it was just coming out of Halloween, and we gave a top 5 ranking, I think it was, for our Halloween candy choices. So we wanted to start this one nice and easy for you. Instead of asking who you voted for, let's just go straight into what are your top 3 Thanksgiving food options? This could be main course, sides, desserts, anything.
Let's expand it so it's not just traditional,
Okay.
right? So it doesn't have to be like typical American Thanksgiving. It could be whatever you would have at Thanksgiving. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
This is very controversial. And to be honest, as a reminder, I identified this in the beginning. I'm not originally American, and my family, like, Thanksgiving has never been like a big holiday in my family. Like, I'm never like, I gotta go home for that, like, Thanksgiving. My dad would like serve like 10-course meals with like Cornish hens and like pomegranates. Like, the one time that we had a traditional American Thanksgiving in our family, my dad had to go to the ER. Like, it was,
I could see your dad doing that.
yes, it was honestly, he cut his hand open trying to cut a rutabaga, because apparently rutabaga is in the traditional Thanksgiving meal.
That's funny.
So my opinions on these are slightly jaded because I don't love most Thanksgiving food. I would say my top 3 are mashed potatoes, because that is traditional American. I love mashed potatoes and like the sweet potatoes. Potatoes are good. We normally have lamb for Thanksgiving.
That sounds pretty good.
I just love a good lamb. Like, so that's probably on there. And then the other thing that, like, in recent years, I've kind of done a little bit more is charcuterie during Thanksgiving. I love meats and cheeses. Like, I am a mouse. Like, I love cheese. So
What kind of cheese?
I love putting together all kinds of cheese, like goat cheese, cheddar cheese, Parmesan, like all of them. I have like a sweater that has like all different cheeses on it. Like, I love cheese. So so I love making like little charcuterie boards. It's one of those things that I get to do whenever I go over to people's houses and stuff like that for Thanksgiving. So
that's awesome. I love Havarti cheese. That's like one of my favorite cheeses. So, let's see. Well, being, Filipino, rice would be in the top 3. Why are you laughing? That's not funny.
You have rice with everything. You were commenting on having rice with the pizza I gave you today.
It was an adobo pizza.
Fair, but
okay. So rice. My wife also makes some like really bomb mashed potatoes in the Instant Pot. It is just fantastic. So, her mashed potatoes, and I'm a sucker for green bean casserole. I'm not sure if it's the combination of like the green. I don't really like green beans outside of that. So, but it could be like the veggies and the however you make it, the cream and mushroom soup, I think, in the Campbell's. But then like the French onion toppings. Oh, it has like a little crunch. That's really good. I would like turkey, but I had a thermometer accident this year, and it wasn't working. So I overcooked the turkey by like 35 minutes, and it was not stellar. So, yeah. Oh, going back to your charcuterie thing and the cheese thing, I just thought of this. If you've bacon wrapped dates with
they're so good
with goat cheese.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you had that last year for
Yeah.
I think our chapel, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For Advent. Yeah, that's fantastic. All right, your turn.
Let me see. I'm gonna be specific, like as far as like number 1 can be non-specific because I'm gonna go at number 3. We'll go in reverse. So number 3, give me mashed potatoes all day. Number 2, I'm gonna go strictly sides. Number 2, give me the Lund family bacon wrapped asparagus.
What? Why specifically the
Because
Lund
they
family?
make phenomenal bacon wrapped asparagus.
Do they like grow their own asparagus?
They might, I don't know,
Or
but it is crazy
butcher their
delicious.
own pork, pig.
But then at number 1, it's going to be my grandma's rolls, which is
Bread.
everyone has always tried to reproduce these, and they can never do it justice. Like, we've come close, but grandma had just that secret touch that you just can't replicate.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, he's referencing Matt Lunn. He's the divisional music and arts director in the Massachusetts division. So Matt
Yes.
Lunn. Matt.
I don't know if it's mostly his wife that does that, but I think he takes great pride in his bacon wrapped asparagus. So, Matt, if you're listening to this, they left a lasting memory.
Okay, next is your number one least favorite Thanksgiving food.
See, like, this is the problem is that once again, I'm not the biggest fan of Thanksgiving food. So
Well, this
it's
should
like,
be real easy for you then.
yeah,
Or if there's too many
I just-
choices.
That's true.
I think the thing that I probably don't understand the most is like stuffing. Like, I don't know. I feel like stuffing is just and most of the time you make it out of like a box. And I'm like, I feel like most people don't even really eat it. Like they just make it because yes, that's what we're supposed to make, you know? So I don't know. I feel like it's slightly overrated and I feel like most of the time it's not that great. It's like kind of dry and or kind of watery.
Yes, I think that's, dry stuffing is like one of the worst things in life, I think. It's like trying to eat crackers, right? And your mouth gets all like
Yes.
dry and you can't like talk or swallow and you need to like chug water. I think that's what stuffing is like when it's not done properly. I'll agree with that. I will say stuffing in most cases, dry stuffing, I hate it to the end of the earth.
I can't say stuffing just because I can do things with it, like put gravy on it or pair it with something that's not as dry and make it more enjoyable. For me, though,
But if it needs something else to be enjoyable, is it
sure,
really that enjoyable?
there is that.
Exactly. We've had this conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
But on its own, cranberry sauce, I don't get it. Like I
Yeah.
can't get behind it.
It's on my list too. I had a list. Like I had a couple of things.
Like I'll never understand it.
Does
If
that have
it
a
was like
garnish?
a spread on a sandwich, sure, I could see that. But if we're talking just straight up a spoonful on your plate, I don't
Like-
get it. I don't know why people do that to themselves.
Yeah.
Well, on that note,
Good old Thanksgiving.
so Summer, you joined us for our senior music and arts camp this past was it early July? I think it was maybe late June into early July. And then obviously you are heavily involved in WMI. I think you are the creative arts director. Is that what they refer to you
No.
as on paper?
No.
No, you sure about that? Because I'm pretty sure I read this last night.
No. I'm the Christian education director.
No, for
at
WMI.
Specifically.
Oh, for WMI. Oh, yes. Okay,
Okay.
wait. Sorry. Yes, it's like it's not like director though. I feel like it's like the liaison or something like that. I don't remember what they call it. But yeah, I'm like the manager of the creative arts at WMI. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, if you could just maybe go into some of your experience as far as like the camp that we had here, because I think that was probably your first time participating in a Northwest Division camp, right?
That was my first time in Washington, at least that I can remember. Like apparently I went when I was a kid at some point for like WMI,
Sure.
not WMI, WYI when my parents got invited, but that was like I don't even remember that. So
But yeah, if you wouldn't mind going to some of your experience as far as our camp goes, and then if that segues into WMI, great. Also want to give you a platform to shout out your side gig as DJ Summertime. If maybe you can tell us the origins of that as well.
Yeah, I don't know. It was definitely a really fun experience. It was the first time that I was able to go and do a music camp, like a divisional music camp, because most of the time, I'm mostly invited to things for youth because that's more my job. But I am kind of like the dance person in the territory just because there's not that many people that are like at THQ that do dance. So I kind of get invited to come and either do a dance during commissioning or Congress or something, or get asked to like lead things like WMI. So it's definitely a really fun experience to be able to do that, as well as to kind of do a little bit of training. I really love doing training. So doing training on how to implement creative arts slash dance ministry in your core with some of the leaders. And yeah, it was just a really unique experience. It's definitely, it's always hard to come into a place where you don't really know the context of like where kids are from and you're kind of initiating these relationships. But I feel like that's honestly like the main thing that I love to do when I go to things like this is that I think a lot of kids come in to a dance class and they think either I have all of this experience and I'm going to be awesome at this, or they think I have no experience in this and I don't want to do this. And most of the time they're like forced to do it. And I definitely feel like I love when I get the opportunity to just say, hey, I really don't care how good you can dance. Like, I don't care if you can do 1,000 pirouettes. I don't care if, you're struggling to like even just like stand up during the dance, like from the floor. Like, I, as long as your heart is in the right place and really getting the opportunity to like center it on, hey, this is the message of the dance that we're doing. This is what it means. This is what we're saying to the Lord when we're dancing this piece. So I love that opportunity and definitely went in expecting it to be slightly warmer because it was the summer and it was a little colder than I expected. So if
Welcome
I
to the
come back, I will
Northwest.
be more prepared.
I like how you framed that. I like how you said I don't care how good you think you could dance. A lot of times people will say the opposite. Like they frame it in a negative way, but you framed it in a very positive way right there. So I think that's something I can take away from.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that I get a lot of people who like joke around with me and they're like, "Oh, I don't dance," or like, "I don't know how to dance." And I'm like, to be honest, dancing like David dances in the Bible, right? And we don't know how well David danced. Like I doubt that David knew the foundations of ballet or could extend his foot above his waist like, but like, he does it as a form of worship because everybody has the ability to move their body in some way. You even see people that are in wheelchairs like doing these incredible dances, like you see in Wicked. And like everybody can dance. It's just a matter of what that dance looks like. And to me, it doesn't matter what it looks like. And to the Lord, it doesn't matter what it looks like. What matters is the heart behind it. Why are you doing it? And so that's more important for me to develop in these kids because they can go and take a ballet class somewhere else and get all of the technique that they may need or want. But the thing that I feel like I can bring to the table is saying, hey, like, is your heart in the right place? Like, are you aligned? Because that's what's going to transform the dance that you're doing.
So you joined us for senior music camp. Obviously that is ages 12 to 17. So we didn't get any of the younger kids. Do you find it's easier, better, more difficult to connect and or teach that age group, or
I think there are positives and negatives to each age group. Now, I am an elementary teacher through and through. Like anybody over the age of 10 gives me a little bit more anxiety. I do so much better with littles just because like that's where my energy's at and I'm like, wow, like and I just have like better strategies because that's the age group that I've been trained to work with, right? So it's definitely a little bit more overwhelming for me when it comes to like an older group. But I think that what I really appreciate is that for little kids, while you can kind of introduce this idea of like, hey, we're just dancing for fun, we're dancing for worship, this is what we're saying to Jesus. Most of the time, you kind of have to do simpler movements. You can't really express some of those things as much. You can, but it's a little bit harder for them to kind of register it. But I feel like with older kids, you kind of get the opportunity to push them not just in like what the choreography says and what the movements are saying, but saying, hey, what is your face saying in all of this? Like, how are you expressing this idea through not just your movement, but also like you're feeling this? Because when you feel it on the inside, that's when it comes out on your face, right? That's how you show it. It's almost a form of acting, right? You have to like almost be in this place and think, what am I saying? And when I'm saying that, like my body, like my exterior, voice that speaks beyond my words, right? So I like that, but it definitely has other challenges, maybe a little bit more moody. I know a couple of we had some challenges about some moodiness and people wanting to nap, but I definitely think that. And then, you can be a little bit more sassy or sarcastic with them. And
yeah.
there's definitely pros and cons to each grade and each age group. So
And then you had my daughter in there who just throws a
I did.
wrench in it all.
Yeah, she was great. She there was some times where she was like, "I'm done now," and I was like, "Okay." I'm like, "You do you, girl."
Yeah.
Well, you also did. I think you also took part in, or at least assisted in the musical theater elective, right?
Yes.
Was that your
Yeah.
first MT experience, or did you have some before?
Um, so not with teaching. So when I was in middle school, I participated as I was in the musical Annie. Uh and the seventh graders, because I was in seventh grade, it was seventh and eighth grade. The seventh graders weren't allowed to be main characters, like had to be the understudies. So I was the understudy of Molly, who was like the little teeny tiny girl who like has like the little stuffed animal and is like Annie's best friend. So that I did that, and then I was in like we did like 100 days, 100 years of Broadway or something like that, and it was like another musical theater type thing. And then in the Eastern Territory, growing up, they would do a Christmas spectacular every year, and because I was a part of the divisional creative arts, the divisional dance team, I'd participate in that every year. So I love theater. Like I'm slightly like a little less theater kid than some theater kids, but I'm definitely a theater kid
I
in
think
there,
you
you know?
still make the cut. Yeah, you're still a theater kid.
Yeah. Like when I was like 11, I'd be in my room belting like Dream Girls, like Dream Girls, Mamma Mia, all those things. Love them.
So go along with working with the kids at senior music camp. How does that translate to WMI?
Yeah.
I think one of the good things about WMI is the return campers, right?
Hmm.
The people who return year after year, whether that's 3 years they go or 5 or 6 years coming to WMI. How do you approach like um, building relationships, kind of meeting where they're at, and kind of balancing the relationship and the skill development and teaching? How does that differ at WMI than it did at like our music camp?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing with WMI is first of all time. And once again, like that, like I've gone to WMI 3 years now. The first year I just kind of assisted with the dance major, and then the last 2 years I've led it. And honestly, it's one of my favorite weeks in the year. And what I really love is the fact that first off, generally, it's just me with the girls, right? I'm not I would love to have boys, but it's only been girls recently. So uh just putting it
Neil,
out
if you're
there. But
listening, you can put boys in
yeah.
dance.
Yes, dance boys, we'd love to have you come and do our WMI dance major. But just especially in the last 2 years, I and this is part of my training when it comes to just education and teaching people, and it's truly the fact that people learn best when they feel like they're seen and they're loved. And so throughout WMI every single year, I try to just focus on building those things, right? And generally, the way that I start WMI is that first off, we go through expectations. And I'm like, look, you guys are older, and I have these expectations for you. And I communicate those expectations. You are all going to be expected to perform a testimony piece. It's going to be 30 seconds long, but I want you to take the time to really consider that. I also, the last 2 years, I've written devotions every single day based on the dance that we're doing. So whether that's taking pieces of the lyrics of the dance or just breaking down what I want the dance to mean. And so both dances that we do, the midweek concert and the final concert, are connected to the same theme. And I each morning, like the first thing that we do is that we gather up in a circle, we go through the devotions and we go through highs and lows of the last day, so that they get the opportunity to talk and to have like a voice in our dance class, and to know that I want to know these things about them. I also start off the whole week of WMI. I always give them a little gift and just kind of like a hey. maybe gift giving is your love language. And I want you to know that before I even got here, I saw your name and I prayed for you and I put this together. Like I thought this through. Because I want you to know that you're not just some person that's here, like that you're a person that I've prayed for and prayed over, and that I care about you. And when I go through and when I say, hey, this needs to be sharper, this needs to look like this, like holding you to those standards and those expectations that have been communicated before we started, that they know that that's coming from a place of love and care for them,
Yeah.
and a place of just care for what the dance is saying, right? Because that's what it's all about. Is that I'm like, look, like once again, it doesn't matter how it looks in the end. If it gets to the concert and you slip up and something happens and something goes wrong, like that's okay. I'm like, I don't care how well you dance. I want to see that you're committed to putting your best foot forward for this worship that we're doing together for the Lord. And so those are just like some of the ways, and that's a lot easier to do because I have 10 days with them. I have multiple practices with them. Um, and so there's like a little bit more freedom too of like, hey guys, like it's candlelight dinner night. If you want to get done quickly, you got to do these
Oh,
things
sure.
with me and I'll let you out early so that you can go do your hair. Like, and being able to just like communicate those things and laugh with them. And most of the time I'll like have like a dance party night where we'll just like last year, I just play on my speaker and we're like dancing in a circle. Like, it's just, I feel like I get a little bit more opportunity to really connect with them and to just like show that care that I really have for them. So
You actually segued us into the next question for WMI Candlelight Dinner. Now, Keith is new to the Army. He's only about his third year really into the Army world. And second year WMI? Second year WMI.
Second, yep.
And Candlelight Dinner when I was a kid, or when I was a delegate, was much different. We don't have to touch on that. But you played a very important role at WMI this year at Candlelight Dinner.
I did. And last year, actually. 2 years now.
2 years.
So my 2 years were your 2 years. My only experience
Yeah.
as far as been Summar is the DJ. So it's 2 years running. Okay. So how did DJ Summertime, that is your DJ identity, I'm assuming?
Yes.
How
yes,
did
it is.
DJ Summertime come about?
DJ
So this is-
Summertime.
This is from my memory. So maybe I'm wrong in this, but this is specifically what I remember happening. We had a team meeting like in our youth department, and I have like a couple of like one-liners and jokes that I say. And I turned to my boss and I go, if I was a DJ, my DJ name would be DJ Summertime. And then I put in parentheses sadness because of like the Lana Del Rey song where she's like, I got that summertime
Okay.
sadness, like that. But I was like, obviously Summer with an A because, my name's Summer with an A.
Yeah.
And he was just kind of like, what? And just like kind of shook his head and walked off. Then what happened was that later that day, we were in a meeting for the adaptive retreat with Major Nancy Helms, and she was like talking about like the like party that we were gonna have, like karaoke and like needing some music, and she was like, maybe we can hire a DJ. And my boss goes, we have a DJ in our department, and he was like, DJ Summertime. I'm like, what? I was like, no, that was a joke. That was a joke. And she goes, Summer, can you DJ? And I was just like kind of, yes, like I can play music. Like I'm happy to like do that. Like it's not a big deal. I love like making like playlists for different people, and like that's something I'm like I was actually at Asbury, I was the music director for our campus radio.
That's
so
awesome.
like I was a radio DJ for a little bit beforehand, but it was just that I would upload the songs onto the system. Like I'd like review them, make sure that they didn't have any like cuss words on it or whatever. So it's like yes, I can make playlists like and play songs, and I feel like I'm pretty good at reading the room of like what songs are like, getting people to dance and stuff like that. So then what happened was that during the adaptive retreat, I was the DJ, and Major Nancy was like, DJ Summertime. And
That's
then
awesome.
and then Neil asked me, he was like, hey, you DJing for the adaptive retreat, can you do it again at WMI? And I was like, Yeah, I guess. Like, sure. And now I have had like 4 different DJing gigs.
To all the DYSs out there listening, up
Yep.
for special guesting at your divisional youth retreat is
Yeah,
DJ
exactly. Exactly.
Summertime.
I'll add it to my list. Please also invite me to do training for your youth leaders. My job does not have DJing in it.
But you're set up now, though. You have an actual like a DJ board now, right?
Yes, yes.
And did I
have
see some
a
branding?
little teeny tiny one. So my coworkers got me a little LED sign that says DJ Summertime. They
That's
got me that
awesome.
for my birthday last year or maybe 2 years ago. So it's just become this like little joke, but I don't know. People have told me that like at Anthem, there was a guy, one of the guys who was like one of the guests in the worship team. He like turns to me like the first day and he goes, "So I heard you're a DJ." And I'm like, "Yeah, but like not really." And he's like, "I'm a DJ too. I DJ at weddings." And I'm like, "Oh no." He's a real DJ.
Let's lower the expectations quick.
And I was like, buddy, you gotta understand, like, I'm not a real DJ. And then at the end, when I did like the DJing for the night at Anthem, he was like, "You're really good." And so I'm like, DJ approved. I have been DJ approved.
That's awesome. You should do some like brass band remixes. I'm afraid if I was a DJ, I would probably just play a whole lot of reggae music
Yeah, you probably would.
Yeah.
or some
It's
like
about
country.
reading the room.
Yeah,
It's not about you. It's the consumer.
yeah, I know. I
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
Okay, we'll get a little bit more serious now. Kind of like talk about some of the harder things or the more worship centric things. How do you use dance as a form of worship?
Yeah, so I think for me, I've never actually been trained in dance. So in the last year, I found a studio and I've been taking some ballet classes. I took one ballet class when I was 3, and that didn't last for very long, and we just didn't have enough money to like keep up with it. So I'll just actually go through like my story of like how I started to dance, if that's okay. So I actually have ADHD. I I was told to get tested when I was 7, which in the early 2000s and being a girl, that is very, very unlikely. Um, and so I was probably pretty spazzy as a kid, to have been requested to get diagnosed at age 7. And I didn't actually get tested when I was 7. I actually only officially got diagnosed when I was 22, I think.
What is that like
But
last year?
4 years ago. I'm 26. But it was very recent. But I just always had a lot of energy, and could never really channel it to anything. And so when my core when I was at the CFOT, they would have dance class after like junior soldiers and everything. And so my mom put me in there, and I actually remember I got in trouble a lot because I was too chatty during dance class. But I loved the show So You Think You Can Dance. And so like I would dance with them, and I was always like up and, like doing the dances with them. And I just loved the way that they told these incredible stories through dance. And I remember when I was in 6th grade, so I must have been like 12, I did Star Search, which is the encore here in the Eastern Territory. And I got 3rd place. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So then the next year I did it again, and I won for the territory. I like won in divisions, and then I won in the territory, and I was like, oh shoot, like I might actually be good at this.
Yeah.
And I would just kind of I remember I had somebody who helped me the first time that I won. And I did a dance with like a ribbon. And I remember thinking, like I might actually be like decently good at this. And what happened was that I went to our divisional like chorus, and I went to go audition for Railton chorus, which is a bad idea because I can't read music, so I can't sight read. So I was like sitting there, I was like, I cannot tell you at all what this said. So I did not make it into the divisional youth chorus. I made it into Railton chorus. but they were doing dance auditions at the same time. And I just was like, I'll just go and audition. And I just did a dance. Like I just freestyled and I did a dance and I made it onto the divisional dance team. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, like this is so fun. I'm like, maybe this is something I should keep investing in. And I remember I did that for a year and I actually really wanted to quit halfway through because it was really hard. But my mom was like, stick it out. And then I maintained in that into that dance divisional dance for the next 4 years of like me being in high school. And what I realized was that while I was much lower than people in terms of like technique and like flexibility, I realized that I could tell a story through my face and through the things that I like really like speak this message, these messages that I felt were really important to speak. And I found that I kept on getting opportunities. Like I was able to do like a solo dance to Mary Did You Know, as a part of our Christmas spectacular. And and just being able to get these opportunities to tell this story. And then I started looking at Star Search and I was like, I want to tell those stories myself. And I started choreographing for myself. I would look at videos and, come up with these things. And it just became this like when I was dancing, I wasn't thinking the way that my brain always goes 1,000 miles a minute. It was almost like this piece where it became this conversation that I got to have with God without any distractions. Which is really funny because you would think movement and sometimes, when you're dancing, you're like thinking a lot. But for me, whenever I dance, it's like all of like the stress just like fades away and I get to just have this conversation with God. And I describe whenever I do freestyle dancing like as a performance, and I just don't choreograph. I kind of describe it as like a speaking in tongues equivalent for myself.
Oh, sure.
Because it becomes less about what are the words that I'm saying and more of just like this is all that I have. And these movements just become real of expressing like I love you, Lord. And then like it's so easy for me to show that on my face because I'm like that's how I feel. And it's just it almost just like bubbles out into the movements that I'm doing. And I just love that. I love that it removes everything else, that it becomes just this channel straight to God. So that's what dancing is for me. That's how I worship. And I have had people say to me, like, Summer, we don't want you to dance because we really want this to be a time of worship. And I was like, excuse you? I was like, this is worship.
Yeah.
And maybe, I feel like dance is one of those things where even people who don't understand it can still see the message, right? If you're showing it the right way.
Yeah, there's something, just as you described your freestyle dance, I think there's something important about authenticity, and just being vulnerable in those moments of just, this is how, you and God are communicating right now, and I think that's something, in the praise and worship world, we kind of chalk that up to as the Spirit leads, we kind of throw that phrase out there. But in terms of freestyle dance, I don't think you can get any more authentic and vulnerable, than that. So
I have a follow up on that for just your approach to that in like a group setting. So obviously, going back to WMI, for example, you do the dance major, but you also do the dance elective, do you not?
So yes.
Those are, forgive my ignorance to style, but those are different genres of dance, I'm assuming, as far as like your approach. So how do you incorporate the same, because what you gave us was very like personal expression, right? But as far as, how the group of, well, until Neil gives us boys, group of girls, how they, how you're able to express dance as a form of worship in that setting.
Yeah, so for WMI, we do 2 dances. And generally, because I'm a lyrical dancer, I'm a lot more on that contemporary side. I always like the Saturday concert piece to be a lyrical piece. And most of the time, that piece is actually like my heart song of like, a song that I feel like is telling this story that I'm going through right now. Like last year it was To Narrow Road, which was this idea of um not being surprised that sometimes the walk God calls you to is a lonely one. And that was a lot of what I was going through at that moment. And then the year before that was Falling in Love, and it was talking about falling in love with God and God being your true love and your first love. And it's a combination of things that I feel like a lot of my girls are probably going through at that time. And then also just whatever I'm going through, because I feel like that's what artists do, is you process these things through the art that you're doing. But the other thing is that my second dance, and generally midweek concert, tends to be a hip hop piece, which is overwhelming for me to choreograph as a white girl. But but I would say that I'm grateful for the ways in which people have affirmed my ability to move when it comes to hip hop. So I appreciate that. And then my elective dance, even though my goal is for elective dance to be about allowing people to come and be comfortable dancing and to kind of like experience new styles, I would love for my elective dance to be like, we're going to do swing dancing one day, and we're going to do like tap dancing or something else to just kind of get people comfortable with moving. It does end up being a hip hop as well. And I think that while it's easier for me to express that relationship through a lyrical piece, it's it's not limited to that, and we think of dance as this very pretty thing. And I think that especially when it comes to choreographing for hip hop, it's a little bit harder because there'll be a natural barrier, especially in the church, to think, oh well, hip hop is, it's not this pretty, this pretty like spiritual dance, but it can be. There are some really hard hitting hip hop dances that I have done that have really like gotten into my soul and been like, oh my goodness, like I can distinctly remember there was a dance that I did to Believer, actually, by Imagine Dragons. And there's this one part where we would like grab and we dot 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 like that, and we would grab up like that, and it was talking about like holding on to the things in our life, and we like released it at the end. And it's like that, to me, even to this day, is a movement that I think of like sometimes I'm trying so hard to hold on to these things and I just need to let go and let God. And so I think that while there's a lot of stigma to it, there's so much, especially with hip hop, there's so many more words and there's so many more beats that you can choreograph to. And while there might be a little bit more filler movement of like, I'm moving to the new spot and it's going to be a little bit simpler, it's not maybe going to express as much. It's still this idea of this challenge of how can I use the movements that I'm doing to reflect the glory of God? Because if that's not the question you're asking when you're choreographing, it's not going to be about God. It's going to be about you. And so I think that that's always the question I ask myself. And once again, I always try to find songs that are representative of what I feel like people need to hear or what I need to express. And then the movement reflects that. For the most part, I use the lyrics. I meditate on the lyrics. I'm hearing the music. I'm trying to see what story is coming out of that, and that'll be represented through the movement.
Yeah, it's all great stuff. I think, I don't know what your perspective is on things, but as far as how that message reaches the kids, like say at WMI, my observation at least has been that they definitely get it. So I think what you're doing is great, and I think that everyone is understanding. Because like me personally, I think before I would have been like, dance, really, as a form of worship, but now I can totally see how it works, and I think it's all great.
Yeah, and I think the thing about using like hip hop music is it for a lot of kids, that's what they listen to, right? They probably don't listen all day to Elevation Worship or Bethel music. They're probably listening to Taylor Swift or.
Let's not put Taylor Swift in the hip hop
No,
category.
I'm not. I'm just saying. It's just that I'm naming a popular artist, and so I think mixing in those elements of, culturally relevant and socially relevant music is important, because that's how you meet people where they are, right? the early Salvation Army, they were going into bars. That's where they saw the need. So I think that's important as well. I think the hard part, and I'll backtrack and say one of the good things is there are a lot more Christian hip hop artists, R&B artists that are coming out. I think one of the main ones this year has been, I think his name was Forrest Frank.
Forrest Frank. Yes. I've been listening to him a lot,
I
actually,
used
since
to be down
W9.
and now I'm up. Yeah.
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 I was listening to him this morning.
Oh, awesome.
He also does that. It's gonna be a good day.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah. So I think incorporating that in the Army as part of dance is fantastic. I think it's important. I personally, I tend, with music, I'm more meditative in nature. You look through our divisional band folders, there's a lot more slower music than there is faster. But people like the fast stuff, and it's all about connecting, right? I think it's just connecting with not only the students and the kids, but connecting with your audience as well. So
yeah, and my girls, they are always so much more excited about the hip hop dance than they are the lyrical. So I try to use it as a reward system where it's like, okay, we're gonna do the lyrical piece for a little bit, and then we're gonna end with the hip hop, and it's gonna be so fun. And I especially in the elective too, I really try to emphasize and express the words because I think oftentimes we listen, especially with hip hop, it's really easy for it to get droned out, the words, right? But making sure that in the movements, I'm saying, hey, do you notice how the words are saying X, Y, and Z? That's why we're doing this. And it helps with the memory of it, but then it also helps with thinking, what are the lyrics that I'm singing? And almost putting that challenge in of hey, the words are important. The beat is cool and that's awesome and we can flow with the beat, but what are the words saying? Because that's what's going to express what the meaning is, and that's what's going to express to other people, maybe the music you're listening to, what words are there, paying attention to the lyrics, because that is a really important part.
Yeah. This is a side question. How do you think, or how do you feel like dance can help or can aid in body positivity?
I think it's definitely hard because I feel like in the dance culture, in the world, there is a lot of focus on body and obviously it is a lot harder to do certain moves based on certain body types will struggle a little bit more. And I think what I tend to do because I try not see, I feel like the more that you point at a topic, the more it makes people feel insecure about it.
Right.
So whenever I do stretching, I always try to give multiple options, right? It's layered of, hey, if you'd like to push yourself a little bit, here's a deeper stretch that you can do. And that's also because some people just aren't as flexible. I'm not as flexible, right? I think that modesty plays a really big role in this, and costuming just as a whole. Last year it was really nice because we were able to just do button downs, these longer button downs, and so it kind of helped almost give a similar shape to all of the girls. And then the year before that, I did different costumes that were just the same color. And it's definitely a challenge to consider. So definitely when you're considering costuming and considering how can you be modest within that, because sometimes it's just certain things that are a little bit bigger and you have to be aware of how those things are. But I think the main thing that I can share in terms of insecurity being a big thing in dance, and I felt it myself, and I've been insecure not about that specific topic, but about my technique, right? That's a big insecurity in my dancing. And I think that the way that I approach insecurity in dancing is a reminder that it's not about you. And that's where the focus is, right? Is that when I'm saying whenever we're talking about the dance and we're talking about looking good and all of these things, I'm you're not looking good for you to look good. You're looking good because you want to give your best for God, because you want the message to be told. Because this isn't a dance for you. This is a dance for God. And so when that focus is put outward and it's put to the Lord, who is satisfied in the way that he sees you, it doesn't become about how good you look or how high your foot is or all of these things, you know? And I always say, whenever there's like an issue with like being like timing or things being off, I always say, I don't want this to distract from the message. And that's what the focus is on. It's not about, I want this dance to look perfect. And you know, like, even I remember there was like my first year at WMI, I said to them, I actually broke down and I was like, I'm really sorry, because I'm putting pressure on you, because I'm putting pressure on myself, because this is the first time that the territory is seeing my choreography, and that's wrong. I'm doing it for the wrong reasons. And I'm like, I'm happy with you guys going out there and putting your best foot forward. And I had to check myself in that, because I caught myself making it about me. And I was like, it's not about me. And making sure that, like, one, that there's vulnerability in that. And I talk a lot about my own insecurity and my own issues. And I say my whoops and poops are like highs and lows.
Oh, sure.
I always like to use potty humor. It loosens up the the fun of it. But you know, like, they're getting to see these parts of me as well, and seeing the vulnerability that I feel when I dance sometimes, and to be able to know it's okay to feel that insecurity, as long as you're like knowing that it's not about that insecurity, right? Like, we all have these things. We all have things, and maybe it is body image, maybe it's technique, maybe it's 1,000 other things. But what is it actually about? It's about worshiping God and how God feels about your dance. And as long as you're putting your best foot forward for the Lord, he's going to be so happy that you danced for him, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for joining us for Beyond the Sound, part 1 of episode 2.
Please join us for part 2 of our chat with Summar Bussey as we get all the goings on in the territory with the youth department.
In the heart of the rain and evergreen trees, the mountains meet the sea, a place of peace. Melodies rising like the morning mist. We gather to learn, create, and exist. Beyond the sound, beyond the stage, we lift our voices, turn the page. A symphony of love, unbound here in the PNW. We go beyond the sound. From blast to brush, from strings to song, every hand and heart finds where they belong. In every note and color, every line and beat, we build a world where souls can meet. Beyond the sound, beyond the sound, beyond the stage, we lift our voices, we lift our voices, turn the page. A symphony of love, unbound here in the PNW. We go beyond the sound. From brass to brush, from strings to song, every hand and heart finds where they belong. In every note and color, every line and beat, we build a world where souls can meet. Beyond the sound, beyond the sound, beyond the stage, we lift our voices, we lift our voices, turn the page. A symphony of love, unbound here in the PNW. We go beyond the sound.